How's it going, guys? Greg Jenkins here from Monkeypod Marketing, and I want to share with you an idea, a concept that I have been thinking about and sort of refining over the last few weeks that I expect you will find interesting, and I hope that you will find valuable and immediately applicable for your business. So here's what I'm talking about. If you look at your customer journey, right? If you look at, from the point of like they first hear about your brand to the point of purchase to everything that happens afterward, you've got this spectrum. And all of the customers' interactions live somewhere along that spectrum, and the composition of all of those interactions is what is known as your customer experience, right? But at the very front end of that, right after they find out about your business, but before they are actually in your database, there is the section of their journey that we as marketers and small business owners largely refer to as lead generation or lead capture, right? And the point of this conversation, what I want to talk about here is sort of that phrase, lead capture, and specifically the word capture, or maybe you say, lead collection or collecting leads, right? It's that phrase that sort of has some implications that I take issue with, right? So the issue isn't so much that it's wrong, but more that I think it is incomplete and that we are underserving ourselves if all we are focused on is lead capture. So let me explain a little bit, right? When you say lead capture or lead collection, it sort of implies that the ideal customer, your customer avatar, the people for whom you are the best fit, it implies that they're just out there, that they're just milling about, right? And all you need to do is grab them by the arm and sort of guide them toward your opt-in, and then they'll be all set and they'll be connected with your products or services, and they'll have a positive experience, and they'll tell others about your brand, right? And the problem isn't that that is wrong, because plenty of businesses are operating that way and it works just fine. The problem that I see is that I think it's only a piece of the puzzle. And if all you are doing is collecting people who are already a good fit for your business, then you're missing out on people who have the potential of becoming a good fit. And so the concept that I've been working on is what I call create your customers, or creating your leads, right? So it expands the vernacular we're using from lead collection to lead creation, right? And I think of it this way, sort of the way like a winery might produce wine, and people who appreciate that wine can go buy it, right? That's lead collection. But that same winery might offer a tasting room where they educate people about wine, where they build rapport with them, and they help the customers that they intend to serve develop an appreciation for the products that they're already providing, right? And the same thing is true for us as business owners. We can help our prospective customers become an ideal fit through education, training, and rapport building, right? So let me show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, so create your customers. I prepared a little slide deck here that's going to walk us through some of this conversation and maybe help illustrate some of the ways it could work within your own business. So you might start by saying, great, I'd love to create my own customers, but how do I actually do that? Well, I think you can do it through three things. Number one, your content. Number two, the education and materials that you provide. And number three, the general messaging that your brand adopts, both, on your landing pages and your website, but also throughout your email copy, in your webinars or any, customer communication. Messaging should always be aligned to an overarching strategy. And if you are committed to helping build the customers that you will ultimately serve, then that should be reflected throughout the messaging that persists in their entire experience, right? So the way that you craft your messaging, your marketing, your content, and your education is this. You find the intersection of what you want your customers to know, and then why would they want to know that, right? So obviously there's a set of things you want your customers to believe, and there's a set of questions that they have. So we need to find where those two things intersect, right? So it's not just like, hey, here's the things I want you to know, but it's framed up, it's packaged up in terms of why they should want to know that, and naturally touches on their concerns and their pain points or the things that they're most interested in. Okay, so here's the concept. You may have heard me talk about this. I wrote a blog post about it, or if you are familiar with Stu McLaren and his course Tribe, there is this concept he preaches about called the success path. And he talks about it as it pertains to a membership, right? So in any success path, it's the transformation that your customers or your members are undergoing, right? So on one end of the scale or of the spectrum is where they begin, and then there are different stages that help them measure their progress. It helps them measure their growth, and at the other end is the outcome that they are after, right? So that's the general concept of a success path, and Stu talks about it specifically within the confines of a membership. So each stage, this is the key point here, prepares them for the next. It occurred to me that the reason that these happen sequentially is because the building blocks of stage 1 are preparing them for stage 2. The building blocks of stage 2 are preparing them for stage 3. It helps them develop and appreciate the things that are going to be important along the next stage of their journey. So as I've been going through the Tribe course the last, X number of weeks, it occurred to me that same concept could be applied to and extended to the entire customer journey. It isn't unique to the experience as a member. In fact, it could start well before they become a member, right? And it could extend well after they finish their membership or conclude whatever their experience is with a particular product of yours, okay? So here's an example, right? If you extend this over like the customer stages, the customer journey stages, we've got traffic, leads, customers, members, and then like private clients, okay? So the way that this has always been presented to me is the success path lives within the confines of that membership experience, right? But what if we extended it out in either direction? And so you, instead of just having stages 1 through 5, you also had stages 0, -1, -2, and -3 that were sort of preparing people to become members. And then maybe after the membership, you had a secret stage 6 and a secret stage 7 that were, an ascension plan for your members into becoming private clients or mastermind clients, right? So the concept here is that instead of just creating an intentional experience for your members with a deliberate progression from stage to stage and a transformation that takes place, is that same theory, that same approach could be extended to the entire customer journey. Now, you don't necessarily need to tell your customers that they are on this path and that these stages exist, but I thought it was really helpful to think about it with that respect. Because what it lets us know is that by the time they become a member, we expect them to be in stage 1. And in order for them to get there, they either have to get there on their own, or we have to create the path that gets them to stage 1, right? And we can do that through our messaging, through our content, and through our free educational materials. Okay, let's take a look at an example using the Monkeypod business model here. So most of my traffic comes from my blog, my YouTube channel, my Facebook ads, or from my referral partner network, right? And they are sending people to all of my various opt-ins, whether it's for ebooks or my webinars, or the free trials of my courses, or I have launched more recently a couple of mini courses. I'll get to that in just a second. The courses are my CB Trilogy, my IS Starter Kit, the LCM Real Life, the e-commerce pod, and the referral pod. And there actually is a progression from the IS Starter Kit all the way through the remainder of those courses. Each course does a pretty good job of setting the stage and seeding the next course and why a participant might be interested in continuing their education. So I'm actually proud of the progression that I've built there. And then the OG membership is where, all roads lead to the OG membership. That is sort of the primary way in which I serve people, especially in an ongoing capacity. It is the most stable part of my business and where I pour most of my energy. And then coming out the back end of the OG membership, I do have a small group live event, which is the Monkeypod retreat. Okay, but in the OG membership, which is what I have been using the Tribe methodologies to focus on, that's where I've built my success path. But it occurred to me that, if you extend that success path out in either direction, that the courses, which generally come before the OG membership, are sort of creating the members that I serve best, right? It's helping people understand Infusionsoft at a foundational level so that when they become a member, their questions are more about theory or about strategy and less about like which buttons do I click. Of course, there's some of that in the membership as well. But if they have that appreciation for education, if they have that foundation and they've been through the Monkeypod courses, then ultimately they're gonna have a more successful experience as a member because they went through things in order. So it occurred to me that without even intending it, this success path has already sort of been created but I can certainly get more intentional about it. And I mentioned those 2 mini courses, right? So over the years, I've had, a variety of different lead magnets. Some have been super successful in terms of creating leads, but less successful in terms of turning those leads into clients. And what I realized was sometimes I was creating lead magnets just because it was an interesting topic without a real consideration for where that lead magnet fit with respect to the rest of the customer journey. And so the reason I highlight those 2 mini courses are because this was something I launched, about 6 or 7 months ago. And I didn't see it at the time, but it totally is because I wanted to do a better job of attracting and creating the customers for whom I was the best fit. So some of you have probably been through these courses. It's the Marketing Automation 101 course, and then the Infusionsoft 101 course. And the reason I started with those is because in order for somebody to purchase one of my paid courses, I want them to have that mindset for how Infusionsoft is designed to work, and at a higher level, if you zoom out even further, how marketing automation is designed to work in general. So by starting with those free mini courses, I cast a much broader net, and I help people establish whether or not, early on, these are a good fit for them and they are a good fit for what I have to offer. So by creating a more intentional lead magnet, I've extended that deliberate customer journey, that success path out on either side of the OG membership. So that's all I really wanted to say with the example for my own business, but I want to encourage you and challenge you to think about what that might look like for you, for your business, and whether or not there is alignment between the traffic that you're driving, the opt-ins that you might be collecting, and the path that it takes for them to ultimately, become the customers for whom you are the best fit. So if you are wondering what to do next, it starts with these questions. Number 1, who am I most equipped to serve? And if you can picture that person, your ideal customer avatar, ask yourself, what do they already know? What do they already believe? And what have they already done? Right? And the answer to those 3 questions is how you should design your marketing, your content, and your education, right? To help them know what they need to know, to believe what they need to believe in order to be the right fit for whatever it is that you offer, or to decide that they're not the right fit. But the goal that I'm driving toward with all of this is that when it comes time to make an offer, your customers should know that it is for them, or early on, they should save both you and themselves the effort and decide that it's not, right? But by focusing on those things, I think we can create the customers for whom we are the best fit. And it's through messaging, through education, and through content. And I said those out of order, but you can read the slide as well. And I want to finish with these words of encouragement from the man himself, Stu McLaren. He says, "You don't have to get it perfect, you just have to get it going." And that's true for most things in business, right? Rather than, futzing around trying to get every little thing dialed in, just get started. And that'll help you build momentum, and that momentum will serve you over time. So that's it, guys. I hope this was valuable. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. If this is news to you, then please join me in terms of spotting opportunities where it can serve our businesses. Or if this is something that you've realized long ago, maybe I'm just late to the party, I'd love to hear the changes or the tweaks that you've made to your business because of this concept. So if this video was valuable, please feel free to like, subscribe, or share with somebody who it can serve. Take care.